Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share the worst makeup products that I tried this year. I always like to do a rounded video and share the best products and the worst products of the year. I already uploaded my video sharing the best products that I tried in 2020, so I'll link it in the description box below. But unfortunately, they cannot all be winners, so I definitely tried some products that I thought were pretty bad in terms of quality. Now, everyone has different preferences when it comes to makeup. We all have different skin types, so of course there is a chance that these products could work out for you. I will try to share pros if there are any, but I will link some alternatives in the description box below. That way, if you have a similar skin type or you like the products that I typically like as well, those might be better options for you. And I always try to find like a good drugstore alternative as well. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you are new, I would love for you to subscribe. I upload 3 to 4 times a week and I talk all about makeup. So let's jump into it and I will share the worst products of the year. So I don't actually have any of the products that I'm going to mention in today's video because I have decluttered all of them. So I will put some pictures on the screen as I talk about them. So the first one is the Bite Beauty Changemaker Skin Optimizing Primer. So this retails for $38. And I think it was the very beginning of the year when Bite Beauty released their new complexion line. So they had a foundation, they had a powder, and then they also had 2 different primers. And that was kind of a big deal because before that, Bite Beauty really only had lip products. So I really like the Bite Beauty foundation. I think the formula is really nice. The powder's okay. It's not necessarily my favorite powder, but it's good enough. But the primer, however, is a different story. So they have 2 different options. They have one for normal to dry skin and then one for normal to oily skin. I haven't tried the one for normal to dry skin, but the one for normal to oily skin did not work for me at all. So first of all, it didn't really do anything to prep my skin for foundation. It did not leave my skin feeling matte or smooth. It's not a gripping primer, so it didn't make my foundation last longer. It just felt like I was applying a very mediocre moisturizer. So not only was there really no noticeable difference when I applied foundation on top, the foundation broke apart so quickly. It wore very terribly throughout the day. Like the Changemaker foundation on its own wears so nicely, but when I pair it with that primer, it breaks apart really fast. My skin gets extremely oily. It enhances texture and fine lines, and I just do not like that primer at all. So I definitely don't recommend picking it up if you have oily skin like I do. Like I said, I didn't try the other formula, so it could work, but if it's anything like the one for normal to oily skin, I would skip over it as well. I actually had really bad luck with an e.l.f. primer as well, which is kind of surprising because typically I do love their primers, but the e.l.f. Matte Oil Control Primer is not mattifying at all. So it retails for $10, and what's interesting is the texture of the primer is very similar to the original Smashbox Photo Finish Primer. If you guys have tried that one, it's almost more of like a silicone type feeling primer. It's very smoothing. So if you have large pores or dryness or a lot of texture, you might actually enjoy this e.l.f. primer. But if you're looking for something mattifying, stay away from it. When I applied this primer, my foundation went on really smoothly and it looked really good for about an hour. And then my skin started getting extremely oily, and again, it started breaking down very, very quickly. There are other primers that I've tried that are more mattifying while still being smoothing. So if you want some alternatives, again, I'll list them in the description box below. I should have pulled all of these products out so I could share them in the video, but I have to kind of go through my collection and choose which ones I want to recommend. So I'll put some in the description box, but this is one that I would just stay away from if you have oily skin. There was one foundation I tried this year that I was so excited about that did not work for me, and that was the Too Faced Born This Way Matte 24-Hour Foundation. This one retails for $40, and I had such high hopes for this. The original Too Faced Born This Way foundation is so hyped up. So many people love that formula. People who have dry skin and people who have oily skin. I've tried that foundation like 3 or 4 times over the years and it never works for me. My skin gets extremely oily. If you can't tell, I have oily skin, so I have a lot of issues with products that are a little bit more glowy that don't stay in place really well. So when they actually released this matte version, I was so excited because They claim that it's supposed to stay in place all day long, keep your skin looking matte, and it's also supposed to be transfer resistant and just kind of last on the skin. I actually did a wear test the first time that I tried this out. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. It did not wear well on my skin at all. Again, my skin did get really oily, and I've tried this product with a bunch of different primers, a bunch of different powders, so it definitely is the foundation. And what's frustrating is the whole claim is that it's a mattifying foundation that wears really well throughout the day. It just doesn't wear well on me. On top of that, it doesn't even look good initially. Like sometimes you apply a foundation that won't wear well, but it looks good for an hour or two. This one just really enhances texture and it settles into fine lines. It just makes my skin look a lot older than it is. If you're looking for a good alternative, Catrice has an amazing foundation that is very smoothing, very lightweight, and lasts really well on the skin and has really good coverage. And I would recommend that one so much more than the Too Faced one. On top of that, I think it's like a third of the price. So it's a lot more affordable, and the Too Faced one just didn't work out for me. I did get comments saying that some of you guys really like that one. So, I mean, it could definitely work for you, but for $40, I'm hesitant to recommend it because it was such a fail for me. So that's pretty much it for complexion products. Let's move on to eye products. I definitely had more fails when it came to eye products this year. So I tried a new eye primer. The e.l.f. Putty Eye Primer seemed to be a really good alternative to maybe the MAC paint pods. It retails for $5. They had a couple of different shades, including a white and a black. So you could do, whatever type of base you wanted, whether you were going for a bright look, a colorful look. They also had ones that would work well for different skin tones. Unfortunately, when I tried this, I felt like the formula was so dry. At the time, I hadn't actually tried the e.l.f. Putty Primer, so I wasn't sure if that's what the e.l.f. Putty Primer was like. Now, I've used the e.l.f. Putty Primer a lot, and I really like that, and that is a very creamy, smooth product. So the eye primer is kind of marketed to be very, very similar, but the textures are not the same at all. Initially, I thought maybe I got one that was dried out, but after reading some reviews and reading some of your comments, a lot of you guys said the same thing. It's just a very dry formula. It's hard to blend out. It's hard to work with. And as I blend it out on my eye, I feel like there is so much tugging involved, which obviously is not ideal for your eyes. On top of that, if I am able to get it applied evenly to my eye, it doesn't really do anything in terms of longevity that other eye primers don't do. So for me, I feel like I'm pretty set when it comes to eye primers. That one was just a pretty big fail for me. I wouldn't really recommend picking it up unless you do prefer a little bit more of a dry base. I just can't imagine that would be ideal for a lot of people. If you have any sort of texture or you deal with wrinkly eyelids, I do. I feel like the older I get, the more noticeable it is. That is definitely not going to be a product that's going to work well for you. So personally, I would skip over it. I just don't think it's worth the money. So I feel like I tested out a lot of mascara this year because last year, for the majority of the year, I was wearing eyelash extensions, and then I took them off in March and I haven't gotten them put back on. So because of that, I have been testing out more mascara formulas than normal, and there were a lot that I loved, but there were a few that didn't work out for me as well. So there were two really bad high-end mascaras that just did not work at all. The first one is the Fenty Full Frontal Volume Lift and Curl Mascara. Now, I did buy a mini version of this because they came out with some colorful options. They have like the original black one, but then they released a red-toned one and then also a green one. So I only tried the mini one in Miss Merlot, which is a little bit more of a burgundy shade, and unfortunately, it didn't work for me. So first of all, the color didn't show up really well on my lashes, and it does seem to show up a little bit better if you use a lash primer underneath, but I feel like that's not something you should have to do when it comes to colorful mascara. There are other brands that create colorful mascara that just show up a little bit better on the lashes. So I wasn't impressed by that, but also the formula itself was just not good at all. It did not make my lashes look thick, voluminous, long. It just felt like I was applying the most mediocre formula in the entire world. So I didn't like the fact that the color didn't show up, but on top of that, the actual formula just wasn't good. It is more of a dry mascara, but I feel like the formula combined with the brush just results in like the lowest payoff that you could possibly get. I know sometimes mini mascaras aren't as great as like the full-sized version, so I don't know if that plays a part in it, but I just know that I was definitely disappointed in that mascara. The other big mascara fail for me was the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Push-Up Lashes Mascara. This one retails for $29, so it is more of an expensive formula. I really liked the way that this made my lashes look because it did lift and curl my lashes so well. It gave my lashes a ton of volume, a ton of drama, so it looked amazing on the eyes. And I'm typically someone that will go in with like 2 different mascaras to get the results that I want, but I felt like I got everything that I needed out of just that one formula. The only issue for me is that that one flaked so badly, and it flaked before it even dried, which is very weird. I've never had this issue with a mascara, but as soon as I applied it and then I felt like I was done, the mascara itself would start to come off onto my contacts. My eyes were super irritated and watery, and it did this every single time I used it. It's just really weird because once the mascara dried down, it was perfectly fine, but every single time I used it for like the first 10 minutes afterwards, my eyes were a complete mess, my makeup was ruined, and the fact that they were watery made the mascara flake even more. So I don't know what it is about that formula. It just took a while to dry down. I think it's because it is such a wet formula, but it's really disappointing because the actual wand and the formula made my lashes look amazing, but it flaked like crazy. So I just feel like I'm very sensitive to that formula. It was a very, very irritating formula, which again, it just sucks because I really liked how it made my lashes look. As for eyeliner, I did try the Ciate Fierce Flicks liquid liner this year. This one retails for $19. This one actually goes on really nicely. The tip is like a felt tip liner, but it's very flexible, so you are able to create winged liner really easily, but this eyeliner smudges like crazy, and again, it almost smudges instantaneously. As soon as you apply it to the eyes, it starts smudging. Your eyes don't even have to be oily, or your eyelids don't even have to be oily, your eyes don't have to be watery. Even if my eyes are like perfectly prepped and primed and good to go, it will still smudge on me. So if you do struggle with oily eyelids or watery eyes, it's going to be a complete mess. I do not recommend trying this one out. My favorite is the Urban Decay Perversion, but this year I also tried the new Colourpop BFF brush tip liner, which is really great as well. And Colourpop also has a felt tip that works a lot better than the Ciate London one. So I don't recommend trying that one out. It just creates an absolute mess. Urban Decay released a new brow gel this year. This one is the Inked Brow Gel. It retails for $26. This is an interesting product in theory that I feel like isn't necessarily poor quality, but the packaging just isn't working for it. So this brow gel is essentially like a liquefied brow pomade. So as you apply it to the brows, it's supposed to lock them into place and also deposit color. The problem is the way that they have it packaged. So it comes in like a little bottle, and then it has a brush tip. So you dip the brush in, and then you're supposed to apply it with almost like an eyeliner shaped brush, which doesn't really work because the product itself is so liquidy, so it's hard to get a precise application, and it just ends up looking messy. I think what they should have done is either made the product a little bit thicker, almost more like an actual pomade, or put it in like typical brow gel type packaging so you could brush it onto the brows with more of like a mascara wand. The actual product does stay in place really well, but because it's so liquidy, it takes forever to dry down, which just isn't ideal if you're in a hurry doing your makeup. Even if you're not in a hurry, you don't necessarily want to apply something that's going to take a long time to dry down. So I feel like the product itself, it could have been really good if they just made a few improvements. So maybe they will end up repackaging, maybe they won't, but I like the idea of it. The actual product just it wasn't executed well. Let's finish up with 3 different cheek products. I actually didn't try out too many cheek products this year. I feel like I've been pretty satisfied with my current collection, but there were a few that I did try. So I tried a few from Covergirl that did not end up working for me. The Covergirl Clean Fresh Cooling Glow Stick was definitely a fail, which was unfortunate because when you swatch this product, it looks amazing. I was actually looking for it on Ulta's website yesterday when I was getting ready for this video, and and it wasn't on there. So I wonder if they discontinued it, but it retailed for $10.99. So they had a few different shades, and they came in these little sticks. So you could just apply them to the cheeks, or you can dot them on and kind of blend them out. The issue is that the actual texture of the product was pretty heavy for a cream product, and it didn't blend very well on the skin unless you really worked it in with a brush or your fingers. Now, if you're wearing any sort of base product or foundation and you're really trying to work it in, it's going to disturb the product underneath. So I definitely couldn't wear that when I was wearing foundation. The only time that it really works for me is if I had bare skin and I applied the highlighter on top. But if I'm doing a no makeup day, I'm not going to take the time to apply highlighter. I know some people don't wear foundation, so if you're someone who doesn't wear any base products and you like to go in with highlighter, that might be a good option for you if it's still available, if you can even find it. But even then, I just feel like it's a little bit high maintenance. There are so many good cream cheek products that blend out easily, and this just wasn't one of them. The Covergirl Clean Fresh Cream Blushes were also a fail for me. Now, these are not a bad product, so these retail for $10.99 as well. I actually think that these could be a really good option for you depending on what you typically go for. These were super, super pigmented, so if you do prefer a really bold look in terms of blush, or you have a deeper skin tone, some of the shades could definitely work well for you. The only issue for me is that they didn't blend out very easily, and again, I just like something that blends out very quickly, especially when I'm using cream products. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of cream products in general, but when I am using them, I'm usually looking for like a very quick and easy makeup look. The problem with this blush is that you would put a little bit on your cheek and then you would go to blend it, and it really stayed where you initially applied it. Even if you used a beauty blender, a brush, your fingers, it didn't matter. It was hard to move around once it was actually on your cheeks. So if you are like an expert when it comes to cream blush and you're really good at blending, this could be a good option for you for sure. But if you are a little bit newer to cream blush, or you just prefer something a little bit more low maintenance, I would skip over it. The last product I wanted to mention is a bronzer. And again, this is not a terrible product by any means. It's just one of the worst products that I personally tried. I actually tried a lot of good bronzers this year, so if I had to rank all of them, this is the one that would be at the bottom. It is the Buxom Staycation Vibes Wanderlust Primer Infused Bronzer, and this one retails for $28. So I actually had really high hopes for this bronzer because I love the Buxom Wanderlust Primer Infused blushes. They are some of my favorites. I feel like I probably mentioned them in my favorites video last year for 2019. They are so smooth, so blendable. They're not shimmery, but they give your skin the most gorgeous natural glow. So I thought the bronzer would be the same way, but the formula is different. It's more of a lightweight, thin bronzer, so you can't really build it up to be super intense on the cheeks. I think that I actually purchased the deeper one. I meant to purchase the lighter one, but I purchased the deeper one, and the deeper one is actually pretty light on my skin tone. So if you have anywhere from like a light medium to deep dark skin tone, that bronzer probably won't work well for you, because on me, it really didn't show up that well. On top of that, it didn't blend out extremely well. It was fine, like I could use it and my makeup wasn't ruined when I did use it, but there are so many blendable bronzers out there. The e.l.f. Primer Infused Bronzer, the Balms Take Home the Bronze, that look amazing on the skin, that are so effortless to use, and they are a lot less expensive. $28 might not sound like an outrageous price tag for a bronzer, but you actually get a really small amount in this bronzer compared to other formulas, and bronzer is something that I actually do use up completely. I hit pan on, so if I did love that formula, I feel like I would have gone through it pretty quickly, because you don't get a lot of product and you have to really layer it to get really good pigmentation. So I feel like it's okay. If you purchased it, you might not be super disappointed. It has pretty good reviews, but there are just so many other options out there that perform a lot better, that was definitely the worst bronzer of 2020 for me. So those are the worst makeup products that I tried in 2020. I will say that as far as makeup goes, I tried a lot of really good products, and that made me happy because I feel like brands are kind of stepping it up across the board. There aren't necessarily a ton of poor quality products being released. I mean, it happens. Honestly, it does. And like I said, makeup is very personal. So what works for me might not work for you, and the other way around. Let me know in the comment section below what the worst products that you guys tried this year were, whether they were makeup, skincare, or hair care. I would love to know so I can avoid them as well. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you very soon with a new video. Bye.